In this tutorial in Cyberlink PowerDirector Basics, we're going to look at the ABCs of a technique known as keyframing. If you're relatively new to video editing, keyframing can be an alien concept and it can be hard to understand. I know it was for me. But what I'd like to do is show you the difference between a feature that is keyframed and one that is not, and then show you a little bit about the basics of how keyframes work. We'll have other tutorials where we show you the different kinds of properties that you can keyframe. As you look at the following clip, please pay attention to the picture of the little red lighthouse. You'll notice that the lighthouse appeared on the screen and basically stayed there in a static fashion. Now let's show you that same short clip where we keyframed the image of the lighthouse. In the example you just saw, we added motion to the object. That is one of the properties that you can keyframe. So let's take the location of an item and show you simply some basics on keyframing in general. What I'm going to do is shrink my preview window a little bit. And now I'm going to add something down in track number 3. We'll take a copy of the lighthouse and we'll drop it right down here into track number 3. Now I need to resize it so it's smaller, doesn't take up the whole screen, and I'll drag it and move it over where it was in the example. So now I have what we saw in example number 1. But this time, let's make it look like example 2. Let's make the lighthouse come into the picture from a different direction. In order to do that, I use a keyframe. A keyframe basically says, at a certain point in time, assign a certain value to an object. It can be text, it can be a mask, it can be a video, it can be a still picture like this one. So I'll go into my pip designer by double-clicking on my small picture of the red lighthouse. And now we're going to do some keyframes. If this lower area is not open on your system, it means it's been closed. Just click on the little blue arrow and that will show the timelines. And in the timelines you see all the kinds of values that can be keyframed. You have quite a few to pick from. We're just going to use the position as an example. We'll get into more detail in other basic lessons. But let's assume I want the image to start off screen and wind up on screen. 2 seconds in here, I want the picture to be at the current location. So I move my playhead to that moment in time, and then I'm going to set a keyframe. Right now I'm going to set it by clicking on the diamond on the left that says Add Removed Keyframe. Now this added a keyframe that says now the picture will be in this location because it's a position control. If I go ahead and play this, I will not see any change in terms of the picture because I only have one keyframe and it's the same value as I began with when I started. But let's go ahead now. The playhead is at the beginning of my picture, and with the playhead moved, I'm going to change the starting keyframe. So I'm going to take the position and drag it over to the right. And you notice when you do that, the little diamond says, okay, you moved me at this point in time, and so we'll start here. And then what it will do is it will calculate in time the distance between here and here, and in each frame between these two, it will move at a steady pace between this location and the other location. If I click the right arrow on my position value, it will move to the next keyframe. Likewise, if I click on the left arrow, it moves back 1. Since I only have 2 keyframes, that's all I have. So let's play this clip and we see it moves onto the screen very nicely between this moment in time and this moment in time. If I want it to move faster, I shorten the distance between the keyframes. I can take my mouse and drag this keyframe to the left, and now I haven't changed the position, but I've changed the moment when that position is reached, so that speeds it up. The closer they are together, the faster the movement. So you'll be able to see the difference here. If we back up to the beginning and hit our preview button, now it comes in much quicker. The locations aren't changed, but the distance has changed. Likewise, if I drag the keyframe, I have to get out of my preview mode here. I drag the keyframe way over here and play that same clip with the same two values. Now the time difference is longer, so the motion is slower. Now you can work with more than 2 keyframes at a time. If we'll take this one and have it come in here, let's assume that I also want it to move upward. I'll take my playhead and move it over, say into the 1 second mark here. And now I'll move my picture up, and the motion actually creates the keyframe. And so now it should move off the screen to the lower position, and then between this keyframe and this keyframe it will move straight up. So we'll go ahead and try that. Goes over and then up very quickly. Again, to change the pace of either or both motions, I just changed the distance between the keyframes. We're limited to the distance of the size of the clip. If you want them all bigger, you have to lengthen your clip in your major timeline. Okay, so I'll take this and we'll make this move about the same speed, about the same distance between these keyframes. We'll move it back a little bit, and then we'll play it. Goes over, hits the keyframe, and moves up. Another thing sometimes you may want to do with a keyframe is you may want to freeze the action. But I'm going to move back over here. I'll right-click and I'll click on Duplicate Previous Keyframe. And now this value and this value are the same. So it will move from right to left, and here between these two moments in time it will stay there, it will freeze, and then it will begin to move upward. So let's try that and see what that looks like. We move left, we freeze, and then we move up. So that's how you can control motion. Again, the last keyframe will determine what happens after it. If I have no keyframe on the end, what it will do is it will take this value and it will remember it and make no adjustments between this moment of time and the end of the length of the clip where I happen to see the lighthouse on the screen. So that's an example. We'll click on OK for fun. We'll move back to our entire project, and we'll see what difference it makes. The lighthouse comes in, stays for a moment, and then moves up. This is just an example of the position value. There are others that we can work on as well. But I hope that helps you understand a little bit about what keyframes are.